An update on the Greywater pond and what we planted around here. So you can see the Vetiver has taken off. So it is coming up very nicely. You can zoom in a little bit. Here and there you hear a frog jumping. These frogs are pretty common in this area here, and they don't mind that this is Greywater. Over time this Greywater will be crystal clear once the Vetiver is able to do more of its job. But you can also see that the water level has lowered, but that's what you expect in summer, and later on this will rise again when there is rainfall. But there will be no rainfall until September, so there is no point in hoping for. That was in the past when there was rainfall here in this area. Here we have also something that is coming up very nicely. This is some sort of a pepper. Some of them are already producing. For example, this one here. These will be very small and spicy peppers. This is an experiment. They were available and I just said, okay, let's plant them just to have something here. And on the other side there's a little bit more of the Vetiver that has also made roots and is growing. The more established ones, they are also growing because there's enough moisture. I can hear Mr. Cat. Mr. Cat also has received company. Let's go and check that out. And also in here we have a little bit of things. Of course this is not the farm. This is just a tiny portion of this. And whenever there is some spare time, we can dedicate a little bit to this here. So in there are a few tomatoes and a pumpkin. And speaking about pumpkins, there around the corner there is also something regarding pumpkins. Let's see. And there's also this here that comes up all on its own. And we have here the offspring of the tree, Robinia something. I'm bad with those names, but this came up on its own, which is very good. And now I take you around the corner. I have to be careful with Mr. Cat because he likes to be in between my legs. So here used to be pumpkin and it's gone. So that failed. Well, there is one that is left. So this one here. But I have a feeling that this place here under the tree for the pumpkin is too dark. So that is the answer. So it is a bit cooler and all that, but apparently does not work. And yeah, well, there is the other one actually, but it's in bad shape. So it appears that the pumpkin wants to be in the sun. Here there is a bit more. It's still there, but it's yellow, and you probably can hardly see it because the camera has a hard time. Let me see. So there is one, and it's yellow. So this does not seem to be the right place. I wanted to have them here in this shade because I think that the harsh Andalusian sun makes it too difficult So a little bit of shade is good, but it looks like this is too much. So now let's go and check out the company for Mr. Cat. So in here there is one kitty, and I'm wondering where the other two are. The problem is, those kitty cats, they always try to get out of this, and then they put themselves in danger, because the moment they come into the compound, there are the dogs, and then usually that ends badly. And we have put some additional chicken wire around this to prevent them from coming out, but they find the one hole that we missed. They have been sitting underneath of this because they are still small enough so that they can go between those pieces there, and then they hang out there and I don't see them. So it appears that the other two have left and I have no idea about their whereabouts. So that's pretty bad. We did not ask for these kitties. The place where we get the feed from had about 40, and as they were not selling to people who want a cat in the home, they just gifted us the kitties, thinking that maybe they have a better chance here at our place. But might be, might not be, but that's a little bit a problem, because someone has produced kitties and there has been no demand but supply. So it's a bit sad. Should probably not be handled in this way. But who am I to say what should or should not be? So I also find this quite interesting. Before we had the Greywater pond, all the Greywater went into this ditch and came all the way to here. And because of all this additional water, the Vetiver was thriving and growing rapidly. And now that we have the Greywater pond, this is not the case anymore. So right here, that Vetiver has to live based on what it can find inside the ground. It's not dead, it won't die, but it's also not thriving. You can see that the growth is very, very slow, and here and there the Vetiver also shows some sign of stress, which means it gets those purple colored leaves. And if I follow that trench here, you can see that there's not a lot going on. Closer to the Greywater pond, which is over there, there is a little bit more green, but only very, very close to it, it's really green. So we basically have turned off the water supply to this Vetiver, and so it now is unable to fulfill the function that we expected, because the last time we were able to cut it for mulch, which you see on the other side there below the tree. And now we don't have this resource, except the Vetiver is able to really reach down. Of course it's supposed to do that, that's the whole reason for being here in the first place, but you can see the challenge. So now we either have to irrigate so that it will continue to grow. We probably should do that, but then it's not sustainable. So another thing to think about. Let's see what we can come up with. And right here in front of me there is also this. It's purple and green. It wants to grow. Temperature is right, but of course growth requires water. That peach tree, on the other hand, is pretty good. It is making peaches, and I hope this time we won't have that much problem with rats eating them, because I saw them last time getting in there, because now we have Mr. Cat living in here, and so probably the rats are not that interested in venturing out into this wannabe food forest. but I'm pretty sure that the more this gets going, the more birds we will have. So until we really have something that we can benefit from, we have to share. But that's okay. This is how it goes. On that side of the trench, this vetiver is looking much better. And also the other volunteers here, because here is a drip irrigation line that provides water to that part there where we wanted to have some pumpkins. But as they are in the shade, they are a little bit in a struggle. We will see how this will end. And over here there is also something. So this one here, pomegranate, is coming back. The hazelnut there is a failed experiment. It is either too hot or not enough water there in this corner, so this does not work. This is more something for more humid climate. And this also wants to come back. Let's check on another experiment. Yeah, so this is also not really working. So in there is a tomato, and this tomato is alive but not really growing. Too much shade beneath that tree. And here is another one, which is in much better shape. So we need to think about too much shade now instead of too much sun. And this patch here, that works well. So there's a lot of insect activity. Bees and the butterflies, they are taking advantage of this little bit of lavender. So that is okay. The membrillo is also making fruits, which is very nice. And the albicias that I cut down for mulch, they have been coming back. Here there's another one, and also the third one there. And the biggest one, which I have not cut, is the one there in the background. This sits there and is happy. But of course in here, in this wannabe food forest, a lot of plants are missing. But as this is not the high priority thing, or has not been, because we wanted to organize the rest of the 45 hectares, we just let it be. But I think we will shift now to smaller areas, do one system at a time, and this certainly should be one of those. There's also suddenly a lot of that. This is some sort of a forage grass. I have no idea how it's called, but it shows up here right there in the sun. And that line also carries some water once a week. So apparently this is good for it. And there is more of it. So this might be a good ground cover here. And I have seen it also there in that corner. That detail here is also interesting. Those white flowers show up in summer. We also have them in the paddock A17. And this is a summer occurrence. So something is going on here. A lot of seed now find that it's the right condition and they come up. And even here in those absolutely dry parts, and this has been driven over quite a few times and the animals have been walking here, something comes up. And that something looks like this. and I believe it is a sort of amaranthus, because we also have this right in front of our little house, so over there, and I'll show you more detail now. So here there's a lot of it, and there's absolutely no moisture available here. I don't know how it managed to come up, and of course the soil has been heavily disturbed several times, and here you can see it when it's a bit bigger. Looks like that. This little berm here was an emergency activity to stop the water when it was raining from going underneath the house. So that is why this berm is there, and because of that disturbance you can see that this amaranthus is there everywhere. We had a lot of pigs in here, or the previous owner had a lot of pigs in here, and that is why it is here. Because I believe it's also called pigweed, and pigs actually eat this. So you cut some of this, throw it to them, and it's gone within a few seconds. This small system of trees here, those are Paulownia trees, is coming up well. What is missing is more plants. I have ordered a bit of bamboo that we will put into the corner left and right, so there where the fence is. And I'm also trying to find a ground cover, but the ground cover that I would like to have, peanut grass, is not easily available around here. So I have asked our seed provider, and he said that is not being marketed in Europe, so I will have to see where I can find it. But the idea is to put something in here that covers the ground, because right now this is very bad. And even if in the future this becomes the dog enclosure, that is why we have this wall here, and there will be a high fence, and also the rest of this. This is to provide shade and have something that is living, and the ground cover that I'm looking for, hence the peanut grass, should be very robust, so that even if the dogs scratch and play and do all kinds of things, this will not easily be destroyed. Of course, the Bermuda grass is an alternative, and that is a native, but it's not a nitrogen fixer as the peanut grass seems to be. Well, I just made a very sad discovery. Someone is biting off the leaves of these Paulownia trees that we are keeping here while we are preparing the places to plant them, and we think it's a rat, but this time the damage is a lot bigger, because yesterday most of the leaves of all the little trees here have been in place, and today this is how it looks like. So this is really sad. But then once suddenly, in a very dry summer where nothing grows and everything looks like that, that is to expect it. Once there is food, the animals will come, and you can only try to create abundance to stop that, because you cannot really fence everything perfectly tied in. They will find a way. You will always miss a spot, and we did not expect this. And there are probably a few thousand of things that we don't know about either. So we just have to go, continue going, and then we'll see. So you can hear that I'm a little bit shocked and sad, but this is a challenge and requires some more thinking. Eventually we figure out a lot of things, but it's a process. Nobody gets born with all the wisdom. So this place here is the place where we want to establish our nursery. And yes, we apparently need to put things on tables and create barriers and all that. But of course this is work and we can only do so much in a given day. Here in these areas, C1 to C4, we have kept the bovines for quite some time while we had the issue with the tuberculosis, and we have distributed a lot of straw. So this now looks like a moonscape, but I expect that all this material will be incorporated into the soil, and later when there is rain, this will then feed the soil. So that's basically for the future. We finally got some sprinklers here going to save what is left of the Crotalaria that was drying out despite all other attempts. But then of course that whole week of being busy with the animals did not really allow us to make this happen. But now it is, and something will survive. And speaking about the animals, we are grazing off the standing hay instead of feeding them straw, and so we get some manure in here, and that is also a helpful activity. But we cannot let them be here, so they need to be out now that the workday is finishing, because down there is the now dying Sudan grass, and we have also the tall Crotalaria, the sun hemp. So we don't want them to try to get over this fence here. It is charged, but whenever there is food on the other side that is green, the bulls might decide to open the path. So let's not allow them to do that. So this is grazing under supervision. The challenge is to find enough pressure so that more than one of the sprinklers can actually work. One time 2 of them were working simultaneously, but right now the pressure is not enough. So this one there has now been turned off, and the other one there is working much better. So you can see that is the challenge. We don't have a deep well that has a lot of water available. We don't have a powerful gas powered or electric powered pump. We are off grid. We basically have nothing, and we have to make do with that little bit. So this is now to learn about our options, and going forward we will then do this on a smaller scale. Now at the end of the shift, the bovine family needs to get out of there, and this time they will use the driveway, so they will come down here and then go through that, and they will get some additional straw and some alfalfa pellets in those paddocks where we keep them now for the afternoon. And tomorrow, when the guys continue to install more sprinklers that we can use 2 at a time, they will then come back there and continue grazing on the standing hay. This in here, which is CT1, is also a good example. So there we have some Paulownias, and they can sustain themselves. Also there has been no rain, and this is basically a glimpse of the future. So this might not be a high quality plant for something, but it's a plant and it's biomass and it's carbon that has been sequestered and turned into soil, and it exists because there is enough straw, which is biomass. So if we just add enough of it, it will come at some point. We just need to prime the system. So now the transfer to another place has started. They are coming down the lane. It was a friendly reminder to take the door instead of going here where I'm standing. I have a feeling they are pretty thirsty. When they don't get enough water, they appear to be slimmer than they actually are. But now they will have a lot of opportunity to drink a lot of water. I can also report that some of the cows are pregnant already once again, because the bulls are pretty active, and that is just what happens in a mixed herd. So you can separate them and control it, or you can just let them be, and this is how it goes. And we try to do all things as natural as possible. That also tells us what these animals really need, instead of interfering and dictating their lives. We are not in the business of meat production. So now they have received the straw. The bale needs to be opened, and also are receiving the supplemental alfalfa pellets. And this guy here is a bull. This is not a cow, and they have been fighting earlier, and this bull has been kept here so that he can recover. If you look closely, he has a problem with the right hind leg. He keeps it in the air, so he's hurting. Nature is not kind. These animals fight between each other over something. This is not a petting zoo, and a lot of images that people have in their mind how real nature looks like are pretty wrong. So there is a big difference, allow me to say this, between feedlots and the industrial animal farming practices and things like that. That is extensive ranching, more or less. So the animals are free to roam and do whatever they please, but it also includes that they will fight and that they will do each other harm. And then we have to deal with the outcome. So for example, if this were now pretty severe and he won't be able to walk, then this is a death sentence. And it doesn't matter if a hyena, a wolf, or a lion, or a human kills that animal, because an animal that cannot walk is dead within a few days. There is nothing that can be done about it. This is not a human who can go to a hospital and then stay there for months and recover. This is not how it works. It's the same for the horses. A horse that cannot run is also dead. And in the case of horses, people do a lot of things, surgery and all that, but nature does not share the same sentiment. So we try to care for the animals as much as possible, as you might have seen in the other video where we treated a deep wound that a cow had or has in her back, but that is basically as far as we can go. And you can see what this poor fellow is trying to do. And depending on how it goes, the other bulls might try to kill him, because he is now a danger for the herd. We could isolate him, but then would create another problem, because it's a herd animal, and isolating him for a long time is also cruel. And then we end up with an animal that probably is not behaving the same way as before anymore. So maybe this gets fixed by itself, or he had a very bad day. And the horses also would like the alfalfa pellets. They don't need that much, they get some here and there. But of course, they are smart. They know that there's additional food and they want to get to it. And these little ones here, they have figured out that the bull has something, and they are trying to get at it also. But they eat much less than the adults. So this is another day in our attempt to mimic nature as much as possible. And we are at the beginning of all this. No rain, no plant growth, but we are trying to fix that. It's a long journey.